They arrived on a quiet Tuesday. Their message, transmitted across every frequency, wasn't one of peace, it was an announcement. A declaration. Humanity had been discovered, and was to be absorbed into something called the Galactic Concord, a collective of 5 ancient alien empires. There was no room for negotiation. The message closed with a phrase translated into every language. You will comply. The world paused. Governments across Earth assembled an emergency coalition. The United Defense Assembly, formed overnight, broadcast a response just hours later. We acknowledge your message. We will not comply. If you approach, you will be met with force. The galaxy laughed. Ambassadors from the Concord, tall beings of light and sinew, arrived at Jupiter's orbit days later. Their analysis of Earth's technological state labeled humans as dangerous, only in theory. Primitive. Emotionally unstable. Recently spacefaring. The kind of species that could be reasoned with, or crushed. The lead ambassador, from the Zelnari Dominion, stood before Earth's leaders in a virtual summit. You are young, he said. But your aggression is clear. You wage war amongst yourselves and poison your own air. You will not survive the stars without guidance. We offer unity. Compliance will spare you. To that, Earth replied. We are not asking to survive. We are telling you to leave. The ambassador smirked, his bioluminescent face twisting in amusement. Your defiance is theatrical. Do you think your little blue world can challenge 5 civilizations that have stood for millennia? A human general leaned forward. Do not mistake our restraint for weakness. We have not yet begun to show you what we are capable of. They left unimpressed. In secret, the UDA activated protocols never meant to see daylight. Programs hidden in classified bunkers. AI warfare systems that had been mothballed for fear of going rogue. Global militaries integrated under one command. Research into quantum displacement weapons resumed. Orbital defense platforms came online above every continent. The world united not because it wanted to, but because it had to. For the first time in human history, there were no borders. No enemies except the ones among the stars. The Concord mistook that unity as desperation. A week after the failed talks, a second transmission arrived. This one wasn't diplomatic. It was live footage of an alien general crushing a human helmet in his claws. Your warnings are like ants warning a boot. You are surrounded. Surrender now, and we will preserve a remnant of your species for study. Earth said nothing in reply. The silence, however, was louder than the message itself. On the moon, construction crews worked around the clock to turn civilian settlements into strongholds. On Mars, terraforming projects were halted as factories retooled for war production. Earth's asteroid belt was seeded with automated defense swarms. AI systems were fed thousands of years of human war data and tasked with extrapolating future scenarios. Every military innovation, every archived experiment that had once been deemed too dangerous, was now being tested. The Concord called it futile preparation. But satellites in their own systems began to detect new signals, unfamiliar energy patterns, warp signatures moving in ways that didn't match known propulsion models. Then came the first confrontation. A Concord patrol ship entered the solar system unannounced, sending a mocking broadcast as it crossed Neptune's orbit. It never made it to Uranus. A human stealth cruiser, previously undetected, intercepted and disabled it with zero warning. No flashy displays. No monologue. Just a precise, cold calculation of engagement vectors, followed by a kinetic strike that tore through the patrol ship's hull. The strike was surgical. Deliberate. It was not lost on the Concord. Humanity had refused diplomacy, rejected surrender, and now demonstrated the ability to take out one of their own without a single casualty. And worse, they had done it with technology the Concord had never seen. The reaction from the alien high command was immediate. Probes were launched. Surveillance doubled. But Earth's response was minimal, just a statement from the UDA. We are prepared. Are you? Inside Concord strategy halls, the mood shifted from arrogant dismissal to uneasy scrutiny. Analysts warned that humanity exhibited traits not common in newly space-faring species. They had advanced too quickly, learned too fast, and most alarmingly, worked together under pressure in a way the Concorde species, long bloated with bureaucracy, had forgotten how to do. Still, they pressed forward. After all, the Concorde had annihilated dozens of civilizations before Earth. They had faced rebellion, crushed insurrections. Humans were just louder. But this wasn't just noise. In the weeks following the patrol ship incident, more anomalies emerged. Concorde's supply lines experienced unexplained disruptions. Listening posts reported signals that mimicked their own systems, only to discover they were human-created, designed to sow confusion. A military AI tasked with analysis concluded one thing. They are testing us. The Concorde decided to escalate. A fleet was dispatched, not to invade, but to intimidate. 50 ships, spanning 3 species, entered Earth's periphery and deployed probes toward Mars. Their goal was psychological warfare. But Earth was done warning. As the probes descended, the Martian surface erupted with plasma fire. Human railguns hidden beneath the soil launched salvos at hypersonic speed. The first 10 Concorde ships lost shields within seconds. 2 were destroyed before they even knew what hit them. The others turned to retreat, only to find their warp engines disabled by precision-targeted electromagnetic pulses. None of them escaped. Every second of the battle was broadcast by Earth. There was no commentary. Just a timestamp, a feed, and the final image of one of humanity's cruisers hovering in low Mars orbit, its hull black, silent, and unmarked. The video went viral across Concorde space. For the first time in thousands of years, a pre-Concorde species had not only resisted, but struck back. Hard. And that changed everything. The fear set in, not because of the loss of ships or soldiers, but because of what it implied. Humanity was still, by most metrics, young. But they weren't acting like a young species. They didn't posture. They didn't bluff. They didn't grovel. They simply said, "Leave." And when they weren't left alone, they acted, not with brute force, but with terrifying precision. The Concorde, vast as it was, had never encountered a species quite like this. And it was only the beginning. The ultimatum came without warning. 72 hours. That was the time given for Earth's unconditional surrender. The message wasn't diplomatic, it was a final statement. Concorde Command ordered total compliance, disarmament, dismantling of planetary defense systems, and full integration into the Concorde's political structure. Refusal meant annihilation. The timer began. Earth's answer was immediate. One word, transmitted across every Concorde channel. Denied. Within hours, Concorde fleets mobilized. 6 armadas moved to encircle the Sol system. The plan was swift decapitation, destroy the UDA's leadership, cripple Earth's orbital infrastructure, and establish dominance before resistance could escalate. They underestimated how quickly humanity had prepared. Mars was hit first. Concorde warships arrived with overwhelming force, launching orbital strikes on known defense coordinates. But their targeting data was outdated. Human decoys drew fire while real defenses, buried deep beneath the crust, remained untouched. Railgun platforms hidden in the Valles Marineris Canyon opened fire. Concorde ships lost shielding within seconds. 4 vessels disintegrated mid-maneuver. The rest pulled back, stunned by the trap. On Earth, global infrastructure moved with military precision. Civilian power grids were repurposed to sustain energy-intensive weapons. Civilian transport systems were redirected to supply chains. AI-managed logistics cut response time across continents to minutes. The Concorde's assumption of chaos was proven false. Humanity didn't panic. Humanity adapted. Concorde Command adjusted. The next strike was directed at the Jupiter shipyards, Earth's largest orbital construction hub. But before their fleet reached high orbit, they encountered resistance from vessels unlike any seen before. Human cruisers with adaptive shielding, modular weapon systems, and self-repairing hulls. Prototypes that should have taken decades were already operational. One battle stood out. A Concorde dreadnought opened fire on a lone human destroyer near Ganymede. The human ship took 3 direct hits before vanishing. Seconds later, it reappeared above the dreadnought, having used a quantum slipstream to reposition mid-combat. It deployed a device that collapsed local gravity, crushing the alien vessel into itself. No warning. No dialogue. Just execution. Earth wasn't fighting to win battles. It was fighting to end them. Within a week, the narrative had shifted. The Concorde was no longer speaking of occupation. They were demanding explanation. How had a supposedly primitive species fielded stealth ships, artificial gravity, next-gen AI coordination? How had they reversed engineered Concorde tech so quickly? The answer was brutal. Humans didn't reverse engineer it, they improved it. Captured wreckage from the first skirmishes had been broken down, reassembled, and modified in days. Earth's AI had learned Concorde communication protocols, ship schematics, and energy frequencies. They exploited vulnerabilities the Concorde hadn't even known existed. What the Concorde thought of as advance, Earth treated as a starting point. But raw technology wasn't humanity's real advantage. It was resolve. At the Battle of Europa's Shadow, a Concorde battalion cornered a human squad in a subterranean ice trench. Rather than retreat or surrender, the humans lured the enemy into a chamber rigged with explosives. The entire trench collapsed, killing all inside. It wasn't suicidal. It was strategic. The loss denied the Concorde access to Europa's water reserves, forcing a supply reroute that exposed their fleet to ambush. By now, Concorde commanders were calling emergency councils. Reports described human units operating with inexplicable cohesion. Squads acted independently, yet coordinated across light minutes without latency. Concorde AI couldn't track their command structure. The truth, there was no single command. Earth had decentralized its war protocols, allowing units to make autonomous decisions based on global intent. No choke points. No obvious hierarchy. Alien analysts flagged a pattern. Humans treated death differently. In Concorde society, casualty projections dictated policy. Losses were unacceptable unless success was guaranteed. Humanity accepted risk. Not recklessly, but with an understanding that victory had a price. It shocked them. In one intercepted transmission, a human pilot calmly declared, "We're outgunned, outnumbered, and cut off. But they're in our sky. That means we win or we die on our feet." Moments later, she rammed her fighter into a Concorde cruiser's core reactor. The resulting explosion disabled 2 adjacent ships. That pilot had a name. Her death became a rallying cry, not just for humans, but for Concorde species watching from the shadows. Because the broadcasts couldn't be stopped. Earth's war feeds were open. Every battle, every sacrifice, streamed into Concorde territory. Billions watched a species the Concorde had mocked now standing defiant against impossible odds. For oppressed civilizations within the Concorde, those feeds became hope. Resistance cells began to form. Murmurs of rebellion echoed through border systems. Earth hadn't asked for allies, but they were gaining them by example. Concorde leadership was split. One faction wanted full extermination. The other advised containment. Neither option worked. Every attempt to wipe out human enclaves resulted in disproportionate loss. Every siege was met with countermeasures they hadn't predicted. Earth's orbital mines adapted in real time. Drone fleets used Concorde's own formation patterns against them. Human AIs anticipated strategies before they were executed. Then came the message that changed everything. A Concorde cruiser, heavily damaged and limping from a failed engagement over Ceres, intercepted a final broadcast from Earth. "We asked for peace. You gave us threats. We asked for respect. You gave us scorn. You were warned. Now you will learn." It wasn't angry. It wasn't loud. It was final. That message was followed by an organized human assault on 3 Concorde relay stations in 3 different systems, simultaneously. All were destroyed within 10 minutes. Earth had moved beyond defense. The war was no longer about survival. It was a reckoning. Operation Dawnstrike was launched without ceremony. There were no speeches. No countdowns. Just activation codes whispered through encrypted channels and movement across black space. Earth's fleets, once hidden, now surged forward. It wasn't retaliation, it was strategy. Humanity had spent enough time proving it could defend itself. Now it would decide where the war went next. 3 simultaneous incursions. The first targeted the Zelnari capital moon of Thauros. The second struck the Lakari energy nexus in the Varnes cluster. The third dismantled the Keval Dominion's fleet dock orbiting Delta IV. Each target was critical to Concord logistics, supply, or morale. Each was hit without warning. Thauros fell first. Using hijacked warp beacons, human vessels appeared inside the defensive perimeter. No posturing. No demand for surrender. Shockwaves from atmospheric entry triggered local panic. Within 8 hours, orbital control was seized, ground communications severed, and the command tower demolished by kinetic impact. The moon's automated defenses were rerouted by human AIs running Concord protocols better than the Concord themselves. The Zelnari fleet responded late, arriving to find their capital already under human control. The few defenders who resisted were overwhelmed by precision strikes that bypassed shields and rendered hulls inert with pulse interference. Human forces didn't occupy, they extracted data, secured infrastructure, and left the Zelnari flag burning in the windless silence of space. Varnes cluster came next. The Lakari energy nexus, responsible for over 40% of the Concorde's interstellar fuel supply, was neutralized in 22 minutes. Human strike drones deployed by stealth corvettes tunneled into the facility's core, disrupting containment systems. Rather than destroy it, they disabled it, rendering it unusable without causing ecological collapse. It was a message: Earth could devastate, but it chose precision. At Delta IV, human boarding crews disabled entire hangar wings using electromagnetic suppression fields. Concorde pilots found themselves locked out of their own ships as human operatives walked through the station corridors unhindered. Dozens of capital ships were captured intact. The rest were either destroyed or left floating, their AI cores ripped out and reprogrammed. Within 24 hours, the Concorde had lost a capital, a critical fuel supply, and a military dockyard. They had no counterstrike plan because no one expected a pregalactic species to coordinate attacks across light years in real time. But Earth had long abandoned conventional methods. Every move had been simulated, optimized, and calibrated through predictive warfare models running on quantum cores built in secret beneath Antarctica. The psychological impact was immediate. For centuries, the Concorde had fought with slow, methodical campaigns. Large fleets, long sieges, overwhelming numbers. Earth ignored that doctrine entirely. It didn't aim to hold territory. It aimed to break systems. With each strike, the Concorde's infrastructure fragmented. Planetary governors stopped receiving orders. Communications slowed. Confidence faltered. Rebel activity exploded across Concorde space. Minor species who had lived under occupation began sabotaging supply routes, inspired by Earth's attacks. Not because humans asked them to, but because they showed it could be done. The illusion of Concorde invincibility was gone. Alien civilians in conquered sectors recorded the arrival of human units. The footage showed organized, silent squads disabling weapon systems, securing databases, and departing without harming local populations. In every case, they left behind translated instructions. This place is yours now. Not ours. Keep it that way. Resistance movements adopted human insignias. Concorde soldiers began defecting. Some surrendered during battles, asking only not to be spaced. Humanity didn't torture. They didn't enslave. They simply removed threats and moved on. It confused the Concorde, who had expected revenge-fueled brutality. Instead, they saw cold efficiency. An intercepted conversation between 2 Concorde admirals revealed the shift in tone. They're not waging war. They're correcting a mistake. We're the mistake. Internal Concorde memos labeled humanity a class black threat, unpredictable, hyper-adaptive, and culturally unassimilable. The memo listed 3 primary concerns: untraceable communication, battlefield initiative at every command level, and zero reliance on centralized leadership. Concord AI simulations placed their odds of full victory at under 18%. They attempted diplomacy again. A request for ceasefire was transmitted to Earth's outer fleet. No reply came. The Concord tried direct contact with UDA leadership. Silence. Earth had moved past negotiation. Every demand made before the war was now irrelevant. The only terms were surrender. In response, the Concord concentrated its remaining fleets around Zarathi Prime, their final stronghold and political heart. They believed Earth would not risk a direct assault on a fortress planet housing over 1 billion alien citizens. They were wrong. Earth wasn't interested in population centers. It targeted systems. Supply lines to Zarathi were cut. Orbital relays were jammed. Long-range scanners were flooded with disinformation. In under 2 weeks, Zarathi was isolated, technologically blind, strategically exposed, psychologically strained. Meanwhile, human forces began dismantling the Concord from its edges inward. Mining stations were disabled. Trade hubs were converted into staging grounds. A network of human-controlled systems spread across the stars, not as colonies, but as autonomous platforms, mobile, hidden, and optimized for warfare. Every captured AI was either destroyed or overwritten. Concord ships were either stripped for parts or repurposed. A new fleet emerged, hybrids of human aggression and alien engineering. Faster. Deadlier. Controlled by Earth but designed to be feared galaxy-wide. One final broadcast, encoded into the Concord's emergency distress frequencies, marked the conclusion of Operation Dawn Strike. You invaded our home. We took yours. This is not conquest. This is correction. No threats. No demands. Just finality. Humanity had shifted the axis of the war. What began as a defense of a single planet was now a dismantling of an empire. Earth didn't need territory. It didn't want allegiance. It wanted the Concord to fall, and it was already happening. Operation Dawn Strike wasn't just a military maneuver. It was the turning of the tide. The collapse began from within. The Concord had always operated on order, hierarchy, and centralized control. But Earth's relentless disruption made those systems liabilities. With critical hubs destroyed or occupied, Concord communications degraded to fragmented bursts. Regional commanders began issuing conflicting orders. Entire fleets drifted in uncertainty, waiting for commands that would never come. Earth didn't destroy the Concord with overwhelming force, it made them deaf, blind, and directionless. Human forces pushed deeper. Not to occupy, but to fracture. Every strike was aimed with surgical intent: power relays, transit gates, distribution points. In Concord space, supply routes spanned thousands of light years. Humanity severed them all. Drone fleets launched from hidden relays intercepted freighters. Cloak stations broadcast corrupted routing data. It took less than a month for entire sectors to descend into logistical chaos. Planetary economies collapsed. Concord citizens hoarded food and energy. Alien media, once censored, now streamed and censored human broadcasts. Footage of the war, of human efficiency, of Concord defeats, of non-human rebellion, spread unchecked. The image of humans had shifted from barbaric to unstoppable. The propaganda machine failed. Even loyal Concord worlds started questioning what they'd been told. One Concord species, the Valari, issued a public statement of neutrality. Their fleets stopped responding to war summons. Earth had never contacted them. They defected on their own. Others followed. Not because of Earth's demands, there weren't any, but because the future was clear. The Concord wasn't losing. It had already lost. Humanity's tech kept evolving mid-campaign. AI coordination reached new levels of autonomy. Each unit could function as its own command node. Swarms of drones operated in patterns that no Concord AI could decipher. Earth's communication protocols adapted on the fly, switching frequencies, quantum keys, and linguistic signatures in seconds. Concord intelligence couldn't keep up. They attempted one last stand at the Rail Iron Gate, a hyperlane node connecting 7 Concord sectors. 40 capital ships defended it. Earth sent 12 vessels. Concord commanders expected a slaughter. They were right, but not in their favor. The human fleet never engaged head-on. Instead, they split. 4 ships launched into the surrounding asteroid field, hiding among the debris. The rest projected false signatures, drawing Concord fire. When the Concord committed, the hidden ships deployed subspace scramblers, disabling warp cores across half the enemy formation. The remaining human vessels converged, hitting the paralyzed ships with precision strikes. 19 Concord ships were destroyed before they could recover. The rest fled. Earth took the gate without suffering a single loss. That battle marked the breaking point. The Concord Senate, fragmented and paranoid, attempted emergency consolidation. Half its members refused to attend. Some had been eliminated in earlier strikes. Others had already defected. The meeting that was supposed to unite the Concord ended with 3 separate factions declaring themselves the true authority. None had control. None had legitimacy. The empire fractured in real time. Earth watched without interference. They didn't infiltrate the Concord's politics. They didn't exploit the chaos. They simply let the systems fail under their own weight. Human commanders understood what the Concord had forgotten. No empire collapses from conquest alone. It implodes when its foundation rots, and all Earth had done was accelerate the decay. Civil uprisings exploded across dozens of Concord worlds. Labor species overthrew governors. Military conscripts turned on their officers. On some planets, statues of Concord leaders were pulled down while human broadcasts played on loop. Earth had never asked to be seen as liberators, but they had become the symbol of resistance, efficient, merciless, and just distant enough to seem incorruptible. Human command refused to claim territory. Any liberated planet was left autonomous. Earth only destroyed weapons and seized data. Once a threat was neutralized, they moved on. That behavior terrified the Concord more than anything else. Conquerors at least had agendas. Humanity acted like a force of nature, unpredictable, unstoppable, and uninterested in dominion. Captured Concord officers were interrogated using non-invasive neural mapping. No torture. No manipulation. Just extraction. Earth wasn't interested in ideology. It wanted systems, codes, patterns, vulnerabilities. Every piece of Concord knowledge was absorbed, catalogued, and used to disable the next node faster. Then came the silent sweep. Human ships, equipped with gravimetric cloaks and void-frequency drives, moved through Concord space undetected. These were not warships, but precision tools. Their goal: to erase the Concord's ability to respond. Black sites were cleared. Listening posts vanished. Covert installations simply stopped transmitting. It wasn't sabotage. It was removal. No debris. No survivors. No trace. Concord species began abandoning their own military posts. Not from loyalty to Earth, but from instinct. Survival demanded distance from the war. But the war was no longer between Earth and the Concord. It had become an unraveling. Concord leadership, what little remained, issued an internal memo, *. Evacuate. Preserve what you can. This is no longer a war. This is extinction protocol. *. Even those words were intercepted and broadcast by human satellites, not as a warning, but as a conclusion. On Earth, the mood was cold, resolved. There was no celebration. Humanity wasn't fighting for pride. It was enacting a lesson. One burned into history. Never again would it allow weakness to invite domination. The message was encoded into every drone, every signal burst, every final strike. Concord embassies on neutral worlds were shut down. Their citizens were denied docking rights. No allies responded to their distress calls. Not even their own species trusted them anymore. The Concord had ruled for thousands of years. Earth dismantled them in less than one. Not because it had superior numbers. Not because it had older technology. but because it refused to be ruled. The war ended without a treaty. There was no final battle, no dramatic surrender. The Concorde simply ceased to function. One day, their transmissions stopped. Their fleets no longer launched. Their governors disappeared or went silent. What remained of their authority faded into irrelevance. Earth didn't send a delegation. It sent silence, and the galaxy understood. In the vacuum left behind, hundreds of species emerged. Formerly subjugated civilizations established their independence almost overnight. Some modeled their defense protocols on human strategies. Others directly requested access to Earth's AI frameworks, not out of trust, but respect. Earth declined most of them. It had no interest in shaping a new empire. Its only concern was that no empire like the Concorde ever rose again. Humanity began dismantling the infrastructure of galactic tyranny, system by system. Gateways were disabled or repurposed into defensive checkpoints. Strategic resource caches were locked under AI control, released only when verified autonomous governments proved peaceful intent. Former war zones were marked as protected sectors. Any military buildup within those regions triggered automatic orbital lockdowns. A new doctrine emerged, not law, not policy, but an understanding. If any species attempted to repeat what the Concorde had done, Earth would respond. Swiftly. Permanently. This doctrine didn't need enforcement. It was embedded into memory. The images of burning Concorde flags, drifting capital ships, and coordinated human strikes lived on in every system's archives. Children on distant worlds studied Earth not as a conqueror, but as a consequence, a force summoned by arrogance and silenced only by accountability. Despite this, Earth did not remain isolated. It established relay stations across neutral sectors. These were not embassies. They had no diplomats. Just autonomous AIs with one purpose: maintain peace through awareness. Each station monitored military movements, economic anomalies, and interstellar signals. If threats emerged, Earth would know long before others did. Requests for trade began flooding in. Earth accepted only a few. It offered technology selectively: terraforming blueprints, medical enhancements, clean energy reactors. But it never traded weapons, never exported AIs, and never allowed its core systems to be mapped. Trust was earned slowly, and humanity had learned its price. The galactic balance didn't return, it recalibrated. Where once the Concorde dictated order through fear, Earth's mere presence established deterrence. Pirates disbanded. Slave rings collapsed. Black market weapon hubs shut down voluntarily. Everyone had seen what humanity did to those who underestimated it. No one wanted to be next. Some attempted to probe Earth's limits. Small factions began secret rearmament efforts. One such faction, remnants of the Concorde military, attempted to regroup in the Veil Nebula. Before their first dry dock was complete, they vanished. The nebula pulsed once with unexplained gravitational distortions. Nothing emerged. No inquiry was made. No response was needed. Over time, a kind of galactic equilibrium formed. Planets once oppressed flourished. Trade routes stabilized. New alliances formed, but none dared speak of domination. Even species once loyal to the Concorde chose neutrality, fearing the consequences of allegiance. Earth had never ruled them, yet they feared Earth more than any previous master. Not out of hatred, but memory. Meanwhile, humanity turned inward. The fleets returned. Not to Earth itself, but to its periphery, Mars, Europa, Titan. The war had transformed its species. Defense technology became civilian infrastructure. AI coordination fueled education, logistics, and emergency response systems. Scarcity declined. Conflict between nations faded. Humanity, forged in conflict, finally found peace at home. No monuments were built. No celebrations were held. Those who died were remembered privately. The pilots, the engineers, the tacticians, they weren't glorified. They were honored. And that distinction mattered. Earth hadn't fought for pride. It had fought because no one else would stand. It won because it refused to bend. And it endured because it never asked the galaxy for approval. Over the following decades, Earth became something else entirely. Not a leader, not a ruler, but a reminder. A galactic constant. Whispers of Earth echoed through every system. No one knew its full capabilities. No one understood how deep its networks ran. But everyone agreed on one truth: if it ever rose in force again, it would not be to invade, but to end what should never begin. And that kept peace far more effectively than laws or treaties. The Concorde's ruins became overgrown with time. Its language faded. Its memory turned into cautionary tales. Historians debated how it fell so quickly. Analysts published theories. AI models simulated alternative outcomes. But none of them captured the essence of what truly broke the Concorde. It wasn't technology. It wasn't firepower. It was resolve backed by consequence. Earth hadn't just retaliated. It had drawn a line. One that would not be crossed again. In time, other species began developing their own defense protocols based on the human model: decentralized command, adaptive tactics, predictive AI. Earth permitted this. A galaxy with strong, self-reliant civilizations was less likely to birth another empire. Still, humanity watched. Its eyes were in the void, in every frequency, in every system that once dared call it weak. It didn't boast. It didn't warn. But it never looked away. Peace, it had learned, was not given. It was enforced. Quietly. Relentlessly. With no fanfare, no flag, and no need for recognition. And so the galaxy turned. Not because Earth ruled it, but because Earth reminded it what happens when no one dares to fight back. The lesson was learned. The scars remained. And Earth stood, unchallenged, unbound, and unforgettable.